Hi, my name is Josh Trame. I'm the Parks Supervisor and City Forester for the City of Monroe. Part of my duties include parks and overseeing the care of the parks. The other part of my job is being the City Forester. Some of the responsibilities as the City Forester include long-term care and management of city, terrace, and park trees. Those items include budget preparation and planning, planning for new tree plantings. I plan for the tree pruning, which includes overhead of sidewalks, streets, power lines, and then overgrown or really thick trees that we do some what's called thinning. Also, we do some training. So new trees, we train them to grow properly. And then the last aspect of that is for tree removals. There are many different reasons why we remove some trees, and we'll actually discuss that later in this video. Some of those include disease, pest, storm damage, or they've overgrown their space. So why are trees important? Well, they reduce carbon dioxide and pollutants, they improve our air quality, reduce stormwater runoff, reduce heating and cooling costs, lower summer air temperatures, provide food, wood, paper, and other items, provide a habitat for animals, and improve value and beauty of our community. So there are many different trees. You can go outside and you can see that there are a variety of different tree species, but there are two main types of trees. There's deciduous trees, which lose their leaves for part of the year. So this time of the year, you can go outside and you see those trees that are losing their leaves. Those are deciduous trees. The other type of trees, which keep their foliage green through more than one growing season, are called evergreen trees. Those are like your spruce, pine, fir. Christmas trees, those would be considered evergreen trees. Just a really quick rundown of the tree growth. Just like a flower, you plant a seed, it sprouts, turns into a sapling, and then becomes a large, mature, full-size tree. After a tree becomes mature, it obviously over time will die because of those earlier instances we talked about, whether it be disease, pests, storm damage, or age. That's how we can tell the age of a tree. And that's done to determine the age. We do that by counting the number of rings. So if that tree is cut down, we can take that trunk and we can look at it, and you can kind of see in the picture that there's the rings of the tree. Each one of those rings represents a year of growth for that tree. So earlier we talked about some of the reasons why trees die. And the one we're going to hit on today is about emerald ash borer. This is a pest. So one of the ways a tree can die is through pests. And this is one we are dealing with a lot right now in the city of Monroe. The emerald ash borer. So what is the emerald ash borer? The emerald ash borer is an exotic invasive insect. It's from Asia, and it came over here on pallets near Lake Michigan, near Detroit in 2002. It was first discovered in Wisconsin in 2008 in Newburgh, which is north of Milwaukee, kind of by West Bend area. What happens is the larvae feed on ash trees, and that will kill the ash trees in approximately 3 to 5 years. You will see throughout the city and many of those trees that the city we maintain, as we are doing some removals because of these trees dying. You'll see some thinning, and you'll see some of these trees that are completely dead. So let's just talk a little bit about the emerald ash borer, what it is. What it is, like we talked about, it's a pest. It's this little beetle. And what it does is it starts as the adult, so you can see the green beetle there. It'll fly to a tree. Once it flies to an ash tree, it flies to the top of the tree. It'll land on the top of the tree and it'll lay eggs. Each adult beetle lays between 60 and 90 eggs. Those eggs, then they hatch into a larva. That larva tunnels its way into the top of the tree, into the branches, and then it burrows its way down the tree, eating the nutrients on the backside of the bark. After it lives in that tree for about 1 to 2 years, that larva, which is the white thing on the left side of the screen there, you can see there's a couple different pictures of the larva. That's showing it burrowing down the inside of just on the backside of the bark of a tree. It burrows its way down and it hatches into a new adult beetle. That adult beetle then burrows its way outside of the bark and flies onto the next tree, where that adult beetle will then lay another 60 to 90 eggs. So as you can see, this grows rapidly. And that's why it's important that we try to do what we can to help slow the spread of the emerald ash borer. Some things that we can do is to not move firewood. Here are a few signs, some things that you can look for at home. So if you feel you have some trees outside that may be dead or dying, it's a good chance if it's an ash borer, it will have some of these things happening to it. So some signs, the S-shaped feeding galleries. So right behind the bark, if you pull off the bark and there's spots, you can pull that back, and if you see those S-shaped galleries, that means that there's emerald ash borer in the tree. The picture on the right, the D-shaped exit holes, those are a number one sign. Like if you see those D-shaped exit holes, that is where that adult beetle burrowed its way out of the bark and flew onto the next tree. Typically, if you can see one of those D-shaped exit holes, that's where you want to pull the bark off and look behind, because that's where you will see those S-shaped galleries. The interesting thing, which makes emerald ash borer hard to spot early in its early stages, is it starts at the top of the tree. So that adult beetle, as we just talked about, begins at the top of the tree and works its way down. So a lot of times we don't even see it at eye level without having a bucket truck or getting up into the tree further. We don't see some of these first signs of the emerald ash borer. And then the third sign, the last sign that we're going to talk about, is the woodpecker tracks. The picture in the bottom middle, you can kind of see the white flecking or the white flakes. What that's from is a woodpecker. So the woodpeckers, they like to eat on those trees. They like to try to find that larva. So they are burrowing, or they're trying to find those D-shaped exit holes, and they're trying to get to that larva, which they know is in that tree. Here's a few symptoms that we can look for. This time of the year, obviously, right before winter, it's hard to see because a lot of the trees have lost their leaves, because ash trees are a deciduous tree, so they lose their leaves. But things we can look for, next summer, is crown dieback. Typically, the trees, like we talked about, that beetle starts at the top of the tree and works its way down so that they die from the top down. So you can look at the crown, which is the top part of the tree, and if you see a full, mature ash tree and the top half or the top quarter does not have leaves, there's a good chance that that tree is dying because of emerald ash borer. And the other common one on the right-hand side is the sprouting. What happens is, like we talked about, that emerald ash borer, the borer starts at the top. It takes away the nutrients that the tree needs at the top, and so that tree is trying to put out the nutrients somewhere, but it's usually at the bottom of the tree because the top of the tree is dead. So you end up getting sprouting. So you probably ask yourself, well, what can we do about this? Well, there are a couple things we are doing. Okay, the first one is removal. The problem with the emerald ash borer is it takes over so quick, and as I mentioned earlier, it's hard for us to identify when this is actually happening. So by the time that we actually realize it, this tree could be infested for 3 to 5 years, which puts us behind, and we have to try to play catch up as far as when removing these trees. So we try to identify these trees to see when they need to be removed. For example, right now is actually a really good time to go outside and look at these ash trees, and you can see, what you'll see is that white flecking, that's from the woodpeckers. So that's something that you can spot in the top part of the tree now that there are no leaves on the trees. Okay. Reasons to why we want to remove them. Obviously, they're not safe. We don't want dead trees around. They're not safe. The dead ash trees are extremely brittle, and the branches are very large, so they can snap in storms very easily, or even a light wind. Other option is the treatment. You can treat the trees. However, you want to do it before or really, really early in the stages of infestation. If the tree becomes too dead, it will not survive. Okay, so there is the option to treat the tree. The only issue with treatment of the tree is you need to do it for the life of the tree. So it's not just a one-time or a two-time thing. You have to do it for the life of the tree, because the emerald ash borer is here to stay for quite some time. So mature trees typically increase property value, provide shade, cooling, and contribute to the quality of life in the neighborhood. So those are some reasons why we would want to continue to treat the tree. It also, like I said, prolongs the life of the tree. Here in the picture, you can see on the left-hand side is a picture of some ash trees before they were infested. And on the right, you can see 3 years later what happened in just a matter of 3 years. There was no treatment, and they did no removals, and now they're standing with a bunch of dead trees. So in closing, I just want to let you know how important trees are in our community. You've had the opportunity to do a brief little summary of why trees are important, the very, very basics of the growth of a tree, how to determine the age of the tree, why trees die, And then we talked about one important pest that is pestering us right here in Monroe right now. So now you know the importance of trees in the community. Spread it along to everyone else. Let them know the importance of trees in our community and how important trees are. I always like this quote that I'm going to end with. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So go on out and ask your parents sometime, can we plant a tree? It's only going to help make our community stronger and better. Thank you.